of you here today. Glad you chose to spend today with God and His children. And happy Mother's Day to those of you that applies. Fathers, wait till next month. Got some visitors cards this morning. Larry and Beverly King visiting with us from Stockton, California. Adrian Marvin Sutherland from Fowler, California. Excuse me. Dennis and Sharon Larson from Cary, North Carolina. And Helen and Don Truex from Howard, Ohio. They were with us last week. We're glad to have them back. But they're leaving tomorrow. We're glad they spent time with us. Please be sure to welcome everyone and encourage everyone before you leave. On Mother's Day, many children go out of their way to express their love and their appreciation for their mother. Angie, an 8-year-old, wrote, "Dear Mother, I'm going to make dinner for you on Mother's Day. It's going to be a surprise. P.S. I hope you like pizza and popcorn." Robert's card said, "Mom, I got you a turtle for Mother's Day. I hope you like the turtle better than you like the snake I got you last year." Eileen said, "Dear Mother, I wish Mother's Day wasn't on a Sunday. It'd be better if it were on a Monday so we wouldn't have to go to school." Little Diane wrote, "I hope you like the flowers for Mother's Day I got you, Mom. I picked them myself while Mr. Smith wasn't looking." And then there was one card from Carol. It said, "Dear Mother, here are 2 aspirins. Have a happy Mother's Day." These children were certainly trying to express their love and their appreciation in their own way. And we see throughout life, as we deal with people, that people do express themselves in their own ways. It's not always the same as we would do it. It's not always the way everybody else would do it. But this is what we see King Lemuel doing here in Proverbs 31. He's expressing the love that he has for his mother. As we start out, we see Lemuel has an oracle here, or otherwise known as a burden. Okay, we're having technical difficulties. Again. The King Lemuel has an oracle or a burden, and we often start out our sermons on Mother's Day in verse 10 of Proverbs 31. We always start out with the description of the virtuous woman, which Lemuel, it is believed, is writing about his mother. However, I want to start from the very beginning in verse 1, where it says the words of King Lemuel, the oracle, which his mother taught him, which, as I said, oracle literally is translated burden. Now, King Lemuel is describing advice here that his mother told him to obey. I mean, mothers give advice, don't they? Mothers try to teach their children right from wrong. They try to direct their children to be the best that they can be. Because Lemuel was a king, it was his burden to bear, so to speak. Much like Christians are told to take up their cross daily. We're told to bear our cross daily. So Lemuel's mother is telling him, I'm going to give you some advice here. Some advice that applies to you because you are the king. You, my boy, are above people. So I'm not saying he's better than anyone. I'm not saying that God created him greater. But what she's telling him, you are an example. People are looking to you. You are expecting people to follow you. And to be a good king and a good leader, you need to be respected. And you need to respect people. So King Lemuel is describing advice that he wants to follow. Notice first bit of advice that she gives him here in verses 2 and 3. What, O my son? And what, O son of my womb? And what, O son of my vows? Do not give way or give your strength to women, or your ways that which destroy kings. In verse 2, Lemuel's mother is actually calling him the answer to her prayers. When she says, the son of my vows. Literally translates, she says, answer to my prayers. Think about that. If you remember Hannah, the mother of Samuel, the wife of Elkanah, she was barren. So she prayed to God, if you will only give me a son, I will dedicate him to your service for his life. And God blessed her with a son. And she kept her vow. So apparently Lemuel's mother must have prayed for a son as well, or at least prayed for something special for her son. And he becomes king. She then proceeds to warn him about relationship decisions. Mother, do you ever want to warn your children about relationships that they're having? About the decisions that they choose or make? Lemuel's mother is telling him, don't choose the wrong woman, because she can be the ruin of a man. And I think we see that very plain in the example of Samson and Delilah. Here was a man that God had chosen to be a judge, to free Israel from their oppression of the Philistines, set him apart, made him a Nazarite for birth, and told him, or at least his parents, no razor shall ever touch his head. But Samson, he had a weakness for women. He had a weakness for the wrong women. He had a weakness for those women that we might call loose. And it hurt him. I mean, even with Delilah, she tricked him into revealing the secret of his power, of his strength. This hurt his parents very much. They didn't like his decisions. But it all came because of making decisions to be involved with the wrong women. If you remember, as Israel's going into the promised land, God told them, do not intermarry with them. Do not take their daughters for your wives, nor give your wives as daughters for their sons. Because it'll create a problem for you. And they did. And it did. And so Lemuel is giving great advice here. Be careful of who you choose. Be careful of your decision in that relationship. If you look down in Proverbs 31 and verse 30, it says, charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. And this is the advice here of what many Christian mothers have passed on to their children. I mean, did your mother ever tell you, don't date anyone you wouldn't marry? Think about what that means. And we hear things like, I'm not the kind of person you take home to mama. You don't date that person then. If you can't take that person home to mama, don't date him. It's pretty plain and simple. I mean, how many kids in their lifetime, especially through their teenage years, came sulking back to mom because they made a poor choice in whom they decided to date. I mean, maybe mothers have even tried to set up their children with the right person. And of course, the first question, especially of a son, is she pretty? Well, she's nuts. Well, you know what that means. But is she pretty? Oh, she's very polite. But is she pretty? Well, in her own way. So you walk away thinking, she must be a dog. But that's not always true. And Proverbs 31:30 isn't saying that you can only date ugly women. But what it's warning us of is charm can deceive you. That's how many people get taken in and get taken advantage of because somebody's charming. They're charismatic. They can use their words deceitfully. And then they grab you. And beauty is vain. I mean, if someone is always concerned about the way they look, I'm sorry, that's nothing but vanity. You know, I know people that will not go out of the house if they are not completely groomed to their own satisfaction. And then if you go to Walmart here sometimes, it'll scare you. You think that people look in the mirror before they left. And that's not just here, that's everywhere. But it's amazing how someone beautiful can be deceitful. And I think that's what we see with Delilah. She was a beautiful woman, and she sure did deceive Samson. She never loved him. She just wanted the secrets. Samson's mission was to destroy the Philistines. And what was she? A Philistine. And that's what's being warned about here. Is don't look at a woman and merely see her on the outside, but see her for who she truly is. I want you to look back at verse 23 of Psalm 31. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. You see, this woman who is one to be honored and to be praised because she's fearful of God brings honor on her husband. People look at him, I don't want to say a jealousy, but they hold him in high esteem. Think, what a woman he's married to. How lucky he is. Instead of looking at him with raised eyebrows, saying, you know his wife. Jesus, that woman. You see, a godly woman shall be praised by people. And it's an encouragement not only to her husband, but to her family. When I think of my own mother at this time, I don't think I've ever heard anybody in my life say an unkind word about her. Matter of fact, her and my father both still are 4-H advisors. And you could go back to Muskingum County, Ohio, about all southeastern Ohio knows my dad, but you go back to Muskingum County, Ohio, and you'll find more kids than you can count that will call them mom and dad because of the way they've treated them throughout their life. Because of the way they've dedicated themselves to helping these kids. And I guess that's what I think of when I think of this. Of how wonderful it is. And of course, being her own child, you don't see it until you're 50 years old. You don't see that wonderful mother that she is until much later. Her At least for us blind people anyway. We don't realize what we have. Now, she goes on and gives many more, or much more advice, but she says, stay sober and alert. Proverbs 31:4. It's not for kings, O Lemuel. It's not for kings to drink wine, or for rulers to desire strong drink. Now this is good advice not only for kings, but for all people. Now, I know I've got into the arguments with people and they justify their right to drink by saying the Bible does not condemn drinking, only getting drunk. Well, that's true. But my opinion is, if I don't take the first drink, there's no danger of getting drunk. There's no danger of falling into that trap that Lemuel's being warned about. I mean, there are a lot of problems that can be caused by not being able to think clearly. And that's what Lemuel's being warned about. About 10 years ago, Brad Paisley had a song out called Alcohol. And that's basically what the whole song was about. And one of the lines talks about, I bet you I can make you put that lampshade on your head. And one of the lines says, the best times never remembered was me. Alcohol. Now I always stop to think about that line and think, if you can't remember it, was it really the best time? Was it really? But especially in our country today, we have issues with alcoholism, people operating motor vehicles while drunk. And so alcohol, it isn't as glamorous to all that it once was. But here, way back in Old Testament times, Lemuel was getting the advice, don't do that, don't drink. Keep your thoughts clear. If you look at 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8, we're told, be of sober spirit. Be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Be of sober spirit. That means keep your edge. Always be looking. Always be aware. And Lemuel's mother knew that no matter how much you drank, just a little bit will affect the way you think. And a man influenced by strong drink cannot properly reason. That's why you have people get behind the wheel of a car when they're drunk. Oh, I can do it. I drive better drunk than I do sober. Well, that might be true. But I wouldn't admit that. When you think about this ability being affected, and one of the things that always kind of blows my mind is when you see a law enforcement officer get pulled over for DUI. You gotta think why. I knew a man that, where I went to high school back in Concord, Ohio. He owned a pizza shop in town. His wife was an emergency room nurse. And she died in a motorcycle accident because she had been smoking marijuana. And that's the first thing. You see that every day in your job, and yet it doesn't affect you. It doesn't bother you. You don't even think about it. Here, Lemuel's getting this advice, saying, keep your mind alert. Those who lead must lead by example. The king's mother goes on and reminds him of who will have strong drink And why? Proverbs 31 verse 5. For they will drink and forget what is decreed, and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. There she's discussing the king again. I got ahead of myself. Said, if you drink, you will forget, and you will make promises that you can't keep. If you don't believe that's true, remember Herod? Remember when John the Baptist was beheaded? Because he made a promise to his wife's daughter after she danced for their party. You can have whatever you want, up to half my kingdom. Now, I'm sure that was a promise he was not ready to keep. But when she asked for the head of John the Baptist on a platter, he realized, I made this promise in front of all my friends. And he didn't want to kill John. He was afraid that if he killed John, the people would rebel. But here was a king that was influenced by strong drink. And again, King Xerxes, when he dethroned Vashti after a big drunken fest, he said, come in and show your beauty. And she refused. And so he said, you're no longer the queen. Because of his mind being afflicted. But then, the king's mother goes on to remind him in verses 6 and 7, give strong drink to him who is perishing, and wine to him whose life is bitter. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his trouble no more. She tells her son to leave the strong drink to those who don't know any better. She said they drink and forget. However, I'm not sure she's not being a bit sarcastic here. Getting drunk may help you forget your problems while you're drunk. However, when you sober up, they're still there. They're still there. And so he says, she warns him. People who have a bitter life, they're going to do that. So they can forget. He can forget that he's poor. He can forget that he's in debt. He can forget all these problems. But it's really not going to help. It's just a temporary fix. And even though Lemuel's mother knew that many kings and leaders of their time drank wine and strong drink, she's indicating, Lemuel, this is beneath you. You have been put in the power of position and authority, and that will only bring you down. I mean, think about some of the advice your own mother gave you about drinking. About the people that you hang around with, hung around with. About your friends. Don't let them influence you. And that's pretty much the advice she's given here. You, Lemuel, are to be the influence. You are the one people are to be looking to. You are the king. And finally, she tells him, be a champion. Mothers are always full of encouragement, aren't they? Did your mother ever tell you, you can be whatever you want to be while you were growing up? Now, I believe that some mothers tell their children that, and they honestly believe it. And I believe some mothers tell their children that just for encouragement purposes. I mean, we went to school with some of these kids. But we never know, do we? never know what a person can do when they put their mind to it. The other day on AOL, I think it was, I was going to get our email from AOL, and they always have a little news thing there, and there was a picture of a guy there, and it said he was now the CEO of some multi-million-dollar company. I didn't read the article, so I don't know what company it was. They said teachers told his parents, he'll grow up to be a truck driver if you're lucky. Now that's kind of a slam to truck drivers, but still. They were just trying to say, you know, he's not going to amount to a whole lot, is basically what they were saying. But now he's the CEO of some great company. And probably because of the encouragement that he received from those around him, especially his parents. You know, I was once told in high school that I could be replaced by a paperclip. Could be true. You look at Proverbs chapter 31 and verse 8. Lemuel's mother says, open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all the unfortunate. You know, that's one thing that the kings struggled with, especially in that time, was being a champion for those who couldn't champion their own cause. Many of the kings, they were arrogant and egotistical, and the only thing they wanted what was best for themselves. Lemuel's mother saying, stand up for those who don't have a voice. He was in a position to help those. He could be their voice. He could be the one. He could be their hero. I mean, you think about it. Solomon had that opportunity. Rehoboam had that opportunity. And they both chose to make it worse instead of better. Lemuel will be told, you have the opportunity to make it right for the people. She says, don't watch people suffer. Verse 9, open your mouth. Judge righteously. Defend the rights of the afflicted and the needy. Two important points here. Speak up and judge fairly. I mean, how many times have we seen something that I just want to say something, but I don't know what to say. I want to speak up, but will they listen? Does it matter? And of course, to judge fairly. Judge righteously. That means to stand up for what is right. Jesus put it this way in John chapter 7 and verse 24. Do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. So Lemuel's mother is telling him, like Jesus, when you make a judgment, be sure you have all the facts. Before you decide what to say, be sure you know what the situation is. How many times have we ever spoken up before we knew exactly what the facts were? I don't know about you, but I can't count the times. I can't count the times that maybe I've condemned to later find out I shouldn't have. And that's what Jesus was pointing out. Know the facts before you make a judgment. Know the facts before you decide. That's why we have courts in our nation today. Now, the facts can be misleading because you've got two sides who both want to prove their point. But Jesus says, get both sides of the story. Lemuel's mother saying, get both sides of the story before you judge. believe, as I said when we started, that Lemuel is probably describing his own mother in the remainder of this chapter, of how she performed her duties as a wife and a mother, of how she became an example. She took care of her family. She was sure that her husband was honored at the city gate. And of course, the tone is set in verse 10. An excellent wife, who can find? For her worth is far above jewels. I mean, it's hard in our world today to convince someone that anything is more important than riches. Isn't it? Everybody wants money, and lots of it. So it's hard to convince people that if you have a good relationship, that's better than being rich. If you have spiritual riches, that's better than being rich in material goods. Even though Jesus says time and time again, those things can be taken away from you. Those things separate you from God. But people still pursue that material wealth. The virtuous woman, as described here, is always looking out for the needs of her family and doing what she needs to do in order to meet those needs. I believe that this shows that even in Old Testament times, women played a prominent role in the family and influencing children. You know, so many times we hear, well, women didn't have any rights in the Old Testament, they were just property. Well, I think if we look at Lemuel describing his mother here, she goes far beyond that. She goes far beyond property. She was, if you read that, the driving force behind the family. I mean, she went out and she bought and sold fields. She made sure that her children were cared for in the winter. She made sure they had a place to sleep. She made sure they had food to eat. She made sure they had a home. Yeah, she had a job, and it was tough. And she worked hard, and as far as motherhood goes, that part hasn't changed yet today. Mothers always work hard to take care of their family. They still play that prominent role in influencing their children. Most of us have fond memories of our childhood and our mothers and the love and the guidance they shared with us. As I said, a lot of the time as we're growing up, we don't notice it, but as we look back, we remember it. We think about it. And I think maybe this is what Lemuel's doing here. He's thinking about growing up with this wonderful woman. And he's taking the advice that she had given him, maybe from the time he was a child till the time that he is king. Sorry, fathers, but it's usually mom who gets top billing. How many times do you see an athlete look in the camera and say, "Hi, Dad"? It's "Hi, Mom." Hi, Mom. We all know that if Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. We learned that real quick in life. God gave mothers a special responsibility. And those who take it on are those who are described by Lemuel in Proverbs 31. I hope you take time to read the rest of Proverbs 31, especially if you're a mother. See that you are loved and that you're special. At this time, I'd like to take this opportunity to have our mothers stand so they can be recognized. And we will have a small token of our appreciation for all that you do Everybody get one? We say every year we're going to get this more organized, and this year's pretty smooth. Trying to get the little ones together and organized like trying to pitch water in a net. We appreciate you, mothers, for everything you do, and we appreciate the time that you take and the sacrifices you make for your children. It's a wonderful, wonderful time. And I pray that you do have fond memories of your own mother. And I hope you get the opportunity to speak to her today if you still can. But God, as our Father, also shows us unconditional love. If you're here today and you've never been baptized for remission of sins, you have the opportunity to become a child of God. Have all your sins forgiven, be immersed for remission of sins, and come up out of the water of baptism, a brand new creation. And be that child as you walk through the blood. Christian, maybe you're struggling with something, you can take it to God. Pray to Him, asking for wisdom, for courage, asking for whatever it is you need to get through it. Maybe you need to respond publicly in a manner that you want the church to pray for you. The church would be glad to do that as well. So take this opportunity now to respond to God however you need to as we stand and as we sing.